Hello and welcome to Hysteria. I'm Erin Ryan.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco.
Alyssa, do you have a nemesis?
Erin, I think if I have a nemesis, it's just myself.
That's very evolved.
I do love one of my favorite people on Twitter, X, whatever it is Roxanne Gay, when she's always talking about her nemesis. And I'm like, I'm so desperate to know who that person is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I kind of like the mystery. I kind of like the nemesis mystery.
Do you have a nemesis?
I have multiple nemeses, and they cycle in and out of my life very quickly, usually with when I pass them in traffic or they pass me and I forget about them pretty quickly.
How many people do you pass in traffic? Are you talking about your husband? Just kidding.
No. No. I get real mad and then I forget about it.
I get it.
I want to start today. You know, this isn't like the headline of all headlines, but is the funniest yet worst for America thing. You know how we talked about that? We talked about a matrix, funny and bad for America. This is funny and bad for America. The Republican men and one pick-me woman are fighting in...
Like brawling. They're brawling.
They're brawling.
They want to brawl.
They're challenging each other to fights.
Duels. They might as well be duels.
They might as... No. They're like slapping. And look, I don't believe that any of those people involved in any of these altercations from Tuesday don't have soft hands. They
Except Bernie. Bernie was almost involved.
Yeah, well, Bernie had to break it up. So what happened on Tuesday is that during a committee hearing, Bernie Sanders almost had to break up a physical fight between Oklahoma Republican Markwayne Mullin and the Teamsters Sean O'Brien. What did you make of that moment?
Erin, I mean, look, Markwayne, you got to pick your fights, bro. You either pick a fight with a Sean O'Brien from Medford, Mass, or the head of the Teamsters. But when the head of the Teamsters is also Sean O'Brien of Medford, Mass, I think you're punching above your weight. I mean, when Bernie Sanders feels so concerned for everyone's well-being that he has to get that pointer finger out and be like, sit down. Sit down right now. It's the goddamn United States Senate.
No, you may not respond.
No, you may not.
It was the thing that was like really funny to me was that, you know, whatever the Teamsters, people have picked fights with Teamsters many times in the past, and some of them were never found. Now, I don't know if it's the same now as it was like during the Hoffa disappearance times, but I just say for good measure, it's not a great call to try to engage in a physical fight with an important member of the Teamsters.
No.
I wouldn't do it. And then Kevin McCarthy used his one fight move, which is body check people and then deny that he did it, when he elbowed a fellow Republican, Tim Burchett, in the back, which is the same thing he did to Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois when Kevin was similarly pissy about something that Representative Kinzinger had done.
If you're going to do it, fucking do it. You know?
Yeah.
Elbow him when you get called on it. Be like, yeah, I fucking elbowed him because I hate him. That is far more boss than being like, I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't do it. And then, Erin, because I watched this saga unfold all day, because, you know, I have cable news on all day. Mm-hmm. By like dinner time, Kevin McCarthy was all like, if I did it. Don't try to change the narrative.
Like, you know, just when I'm about to feel sorry for Kevin McCarthy, it's like, oh yeah, he's a guy who goes around at work and elbows his coworkers in the back and then is like, I didn't. Like, he deserves everything bad.
Totally.
Everything bad that happens to him.
Because he's a weasel.
And meanwhile, in the House, we have a new speaker and certified freak 7 days a week, Mike Johnson, essentially putting the American budget on Klarna. Like, have you ever checked out and you've bought like a wool blanket and it's like, do you want to pay in 4 installments? And you're like, no. Oh my God. But we're using Klarna to fund this country now. And I mean, look, if it works for college kids that are trying to buy a Sheen Hall, then, you know, why doesn't it work for why not work for America? Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, at least the government didn't shut down.
At least the government didn't shut down. That is the bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
That is like saying, at least I didn't drive my car off a bridge every time I get from one place to another. It's like, no, that wasn't even something that was in consideration.
Now the government's just driving with its hazards on.
Yeah, it's parked in a disabled spot. Like illegally, and it's had its hazards on, and it's been there for like 3 hours, and you're like, that's not how hazards work.
You're like, you're getting a mani-pedi. That's not what you do.
Right, exactly. I think I don't like to do this, but I think I'm about to call traffic control to deal with your car because it's so irritating how blatantly you're breaking the rules. Okay, let's get into something that I have noticed as sort of a through line. So there was an election last week. Obviously, abortion won big once again. And, since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, abortion's like undefeated, completely undefeated when it's been put up for a vote. And last week's election, we saw an absolute shellacking of Republicans in elections that were supposed to be closer than they ended up being. And that got the GOP panicking. And I think we got to see the night after in the Republican debate some real-time brainstorming on how conservatives can finesse their unpopular and bad ideas on abortion into something more palatable. But really, they're just trying to figure out a new way to trick us going into 2024. So we just kind of want to go over some of the ways that the GOP and conservatives are some of the ideas they're pitching and what is actually behind the ideas. Because I don't know, it's it's not, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, And that's kind of what they're trying to do. It's kind of what they're trying to do. So let's talk about the GOP girlies. Kayleigh McEnany. Alyssa, what did Kayleigh suggest as a new way forward for Republicans on abortion?
Erin, first of all, I can't believe we still have to talk about this nut. Okay?
I know.
She says, want to make sure I don't get this wrong. She says the GOP should, quote, not just be a pro-baby party, but a pro-mother party. Okay. She goes on to say that there should be legislation to make the child tax credit apply to the unborn. This is her strategy. This is what she says she wants to do. And that there should be legislation for women to have access to supplemental food and nutrition program up to 2 years after childbirth. Okay.
Okay,
Erin,
how about paid family leave, you stupid
Erin,
bitch?
It's so much worse than that. Because if you actually take a minute and think about what she's saying, this absolute fucking asshole, I bet she doesn't even know that WIC, Women, Infants, and Children money, exists, that WIC is there, that SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is there, and that Republicans have tried to gut it year after fucking year after fucking year. Moreover, child tax credit expired 2021. All Republicans were for it. They let it expire. Child poverty doubled in 2022. Okay.
Because of that expiration.
So Kayleigh, first of all, this is the other thing, Erin, when they're talking about having child tax credits apply to fetuses, these are people who want to offset every fucking program that there is. Oh, you want to get that? There should be a pay for. You should have to work. You have to work and prove that you're working if you want to get any sort of assistance from the government. Okay. But they think that supplying a tax credit for the unborn is going to not be ripe with fraud. It's just such fucking hypocrisy and bullshit. And they continue to show that they do not care about people who are living. Like, the people are alive.
They also don't know how much things cost. It's like, oh, what's a banana? What's it cost, Michael? $10?
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
You've never actually set foot in a supermarket, have you?
As a parent, let me tell you what costs a lot more than what I would gain from some sort of like fetal tax credit. Okay. Childcare. Why aren't childcare workers cannot earn a living wage? Childcare centers don't have the ability to profit. It's razor thin. Childcare costs so much more than any tax credit that I could get for 9 months. Back applied to 9 months. That doesn't do shit for me. It's like, it doesn't do shit. And another thing, medical care. You want to be pro-mother?
Yeah.
Why was my uncomplicated birth. Why did my uncomplicated birth in Los Angeles cost my insurance company? Why was my insurance company billed $28,000 for an uncomplicated birth in a hospital? Like, why is prenatal care something that is difficult for people to access in rural areas?
Right.
Why is postpartum care something that you see your doctor like 6 months after you have a kid? They like send you out of the hospital and they're like, see you in, or 6 weeks. And they're like, see you in 6 weeks. And then they don't you don't see anybody and you're like,
maybe they could stop passing laws that are so terrorizing to OBGYNs that there aren't like massive gynecological deserts across this country.
Exactly. Take a look at what's happening in red states, in Idaho, in Utah, in Florida. In the Dakotas, their prenatal care is unavailable partly because they caused this problem. They made it a hostile place for doctors to live and work. So, like, you want to be pro-mother and you're going to try to do it with a fucking tax credit? Give me a goddamn break. That is ridiculous. And also, in the U.S., we don't have any guaranteed family leave. FMLA only applies to something like 55% of workers. So almost half of workers aren't even eligible for the 12 weeks of unpaid leave that FMLA grants under certain circumstances. Unpaid leave. It's so silly, and it is such a pitch from a person who's never really been in a situation where they've had to struggle or they've had to make these decisions or they've had to.
Made by a person who only cares about winning and cares nothing about what the American people actually want, including Republicans, because she is frankly out of touch, and all of the election results from last week prove that.
Extremely. Well, Nikki Haley, I think, is a little bit more of a canny politician than Kayleigh McEnany. And we saw a really interesting moment
We were texting about this.
Yeah, in last week's GOP debate, we heard Nikki Haley mix in some pragmatism with what ultimately is the same idea that she already has. So basically, Haley said that if Republicans want to be realistic, they have to consider the fact that they don't have the votes for a national ban, and that the voters have spoken. And it appears that voters that are able to, decide at the ballot box in places like Ohio and Kansas, not every state has the same procedure for adding amendments to the state constitution. But in some states, voters are able to speak directly and change their laws. In other states, they're not. Nikki Haley was like, let's not mess with them. We're not going to be able to pass a federal ban. And then after she says this semi-reasonable thing, she says that if they did have the votes to pass a federal ban, she would sign it. So really, what she's doing is sucking up to people that are afraid of a federal ban by being like, don't be afraid of a federal ban, but I would totally sign one.
But then again, it's like, this is the problem. None of these people are actually telling the truth. Like, Erin, you and I actually have no idea what Nikki Haley actually believes on abortion. Like, we don't. Like, she could be someone who's like pro-life for me, but do what you got to do. That you could parse so many different positions.
Being pro-choice. That's called being pro-choice.
But you could
if you're like, I would never have an abortion, but it's totally it's none of my business if other people do. That's called being pro-choice.
But the funny thing is, she didn't stand up there and be all like, 6 weeks, which, she was standing next to Ron DeSantis and all those other nuts who were like, yeah, abortion should be federally illegal. But yet she still raised, this is the thing I think is so funny, and that Republicans, again, are not reading the warning signs, and far be it from us to show them the warning signs. But she was like in a poll the next day, declared the winner of the debate by many people, and raised $1 million within 24 hours, which if you're not Donald Trump, that feels like a pretty good amount of money. And so clearly, there are a lot of Republicans who are not repelled by her ambiguity. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to say that going into 2024, we're going to see a lot more soft-focused Republican women using personal stories to justify limiting the healthcare choices for all women. So Nikki Haley brought up during her debate answer, again, we're talking about it a lot because it was very interesting. And
it was interesting.
I think it's a look into the future. She talked about her personal struggles with infertility.
Right.
And that's real. Like that's real, and it's super heartbreaking when it happens to people who want to have children and have a difficult time doing it on their own. That's real. But like that is not justification for limiting the choices of other people.
Okay. So as an infertile person, okay, let me tell you why that answer enraged me. Because how fucking dare you? You don't get to use infertile people as some like why abortion shouldn't happen. Because what's the actual cause and effect there? Is it like, well, I'm infertile, so you should be forced to have a baby so I can adopt it? Like, what is the cause and effect? Like, how does anyone's infertility have anything to do with the ability for women to choose what they want to do with their bodies? That was the part. And, I'm like willing to give her a little running room because she's not the worst of all of them. But that to me was like, literally go fuck yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really important point. Like, if you are somebody who has struggled with infertility and that sort of message resonates with you, because it does kind of hurt to see other people being able to do something that you want to do, if that's what you want. But like, don't fall for it. You are not a pawn. You do not, like, Nikki Haley is trying to use you as a pawn. She's trying to use her personal story as like a pawn. Ronna McDaniel, not on the same team as Nikki Haley, team pragmatism.
She is the queen of the Homer Simpson trying to back it into a bush and disappear.
Yeah. Ronna McDaniel is continuing to, I don't know. I guess like if you can ride the big lie bus for as long as she did, you can ride this big lie bus. She said on Sunday that Americans actually want abortion restrictions, as evidenced by all of the times that abortion restrictions have lost at the ballot box. Anyway, she said, "I'm proud to be a pro-life party, but we can win on this message. The American people are where they are, and they want common sense limitations. They want more access to adoption. We want to make sure that there's pregnancy crisis centers. These are things we can win on."
No,
Bitch,
you can't.
No, you can't.
You can't. You're
Bitch,
not.
No, you can't.
Nope.
You cannot. You can't. But keep trying. Go ahead and keep trying. I think that all of these abortion votes and all of this discussion about abortion has exposed something that hasn't really been talked about a lot. And that is the utter weirdness of putting personal medical decisions up to a vote, involving many people who will never themselves have to make that decision. It's deeply weird. It's deeply weird. And it's not our business. And I think there are even people who are like uncomfortable morally with the concept of abortion, but also uncomfortable morally with the concept of making a decision about whether someone else can have an abortion.
Right. And for me, the thing that I find so repellent about old Ramna Romney is that nothing they say is like rooted in the truth. And I don't like that you can rely on, like I mean, of course, nothing they say is rooted in the truth, but 1 minute it's like, well, at 15 weeks, a fetus can feel pain. And then it's like, okay, but 6 weeks, but okay, let's go back to 15 weeks. And 6 weeks isn't playing that well. So like, let's go back to 15 weeks. And like, I think it's just actually incredibly cruel. Like as a party, there are people who look up to them and are genuinely, people who don't fucking troll Twitter and cable news all day. And they're like, oh, you know what? This is my person. I'm a Republican. And I look to them and they're just so full of lies and hypocrisy that it's just, I think it's like actually reached a level of cruelty that they're just trying to confuse their electorate so much that they're like, nah, it's okay. We'll just do whatever. We'll do whatever they tell us. And I just, it really, that really makes me mad.
Yeah. And it's pretty wild to me that like, and again, this is something that is being exposed by all these votes and all this discussion about abortion. I think people who haven't thought that deeply about it are now thinking deeply about it. And it is also deeply weird that a fetus's theoretical pain, hypothetical pain, matters more than a real woman's real actual pain that you can see and she can tell you about. Like childbirth is it's not a massage. It's unpleasant. It hurts a lot. Pregnancy is not pleasant. Like why does the pain of 9 months of pregnancy matter less than a hypothetical momentary pain? Like
Right.
it is so ridiculous. And also I want to point out that 15 weeks is based on nothing.
Nothing.
It's based on polling. It's not based on medicine. It's not
Right.
based on like any point in the pregnancy where it's like, okay, well, this is something that happens at 15 weeks. Like, oh, it can, you know, it can like do sign language. No. It's based on polling.
Right.
Because 15 sounds like a nice round number. And also
It sounds
like,
reasonable.
and also like if you've ever been pregnant, you know 15 weeks like doesn't mean anything either. It's like 12 weeks, 6, like it doesn't, it's a meaningless number that is very cynically based on asking a bunch of people what they're comfortable doing to limit other people's bodies. Let's talk about Ohio. So almost immediately after issue 1 passed, with 57% of the vote, the Republicans in the state of Ohio started just freaking the fuck out. Just complete anti-democratic freaking the fuck out. There were 27 Republicans who immediately signed a letter calling for Ohio to just ignore the Constitution of its state. There were also 4 Republicans in Ohio that said they were going to try to pass a law making it so that they could ignore the courts.
Right.
Basically just like undoing the whole concept of checks and balances. And it was there's a lot of chatter and people saying they were going to take it to court and they were going to fight it. And it was the legislature that got to decide what laws actually were on the books or not on the books, when really it is clear Ohio's current 6-week abortion ban is in direct conflict with the state constitution,
Right.
which means that it cannot be a law anymore. There is no reality in which that's not true. And I think this week it seems that Republicans in Ohio are finally just coming back down to earth.
They're like pumping the brakes a little bit.
Yeah. So basically pouring a little bit of cold water on the post-election butthurt was the Speaker of the Ohio House, who was just like, no, this isn't serious. We can't do any of this. Like,
Right.
The Ohio voters voted for what they voted for. We need to just like move on in our new reality. And the governor also kind of alluded to something similar, where it's like none of these wild plans are going to fix anything.
Well, and like Erin, all of their plans essentially come down to like election denying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Well,
this
what if it
wasn't
didn't
something.
happen?
Well, right. This wasn't even something that passed with 50%. I mean, it was a near supermajority of people, Democrats and Republicans, who voted for this last week. And so for the Republicans to come out and be like, no. Like, just stop trying to make fetch happen.
That is so fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
It's like a sea of Regina George is in there. Like,
Right.
just let people, they told you what they wanted. Like, get on the train.
Yeah. I think I also learned today that even if they took out the 3 most heavily populated counties in Ohio, so like the major cities in Ohio, issue 1 still would have won.
Yes. Like,
It was a wide vote. You know, it was a resounding victory. And also it's like a losing issue for Republicans in Ohio specifically. And I think that more politically savvy people are like, we probably shouldn't keep this on the ballot in 2024
Right.
if we want any Republicans to win at all. Well, of course it is on the ballot. Sherrod Brown is up for re-election, and he's going to be running against people who would vote to ban abortion if they became senators. And so it's on the ballot, whether or not they like it and whether or not they want it to be. Now, Alyssa, I had a kind of paranoid thought when I was reading about all of this Ohio back and forth.
okay.
So we have this crazy fringe, you know, the 27 who signed the letter, the 4 that were like, the courts aren't real. We have those crazy people. And then we have people who are also like fringy, like Governor Mike DeWine, the Speaker of the House, who are like, whoa, guys, we got to just the will of the people. We got to move on. And it felt almost like a bad cop, good cop communication strategy. Do you think that we're going to see Republicans trying to finesse themselves into seeming moderate by tailing truly bonkers ideas by being like, no, we're reasonable?
Yeah, Erin, I think it's less a strategy and more a tactic. And again, I think it is so cynical because it's literally just meant to trick people. Like it's only meant to trick people. So if you have, it's something that Sherrod Brown will face, right? He'll have some real nuts that run against him. And then some people who are actually like nut in their dark chocolate core, but are going to pretend, oh, no, I am for abortion, sort of. Like, he's crazy. I don't think no one should ever have an abortion. I just think you should have to hop on one leg, down 10 mile up the hill of snow to be able to get an abortion. Like, you should get one, like, if you can figure out how to get one. So I think that it is, we see it with Romney Rani at the RNC. They're all trying to find ways to just trick people. Fundamentally, if you are a Republican, except for maybe like Lisa Murkowski, I'm going to put her up in a corner. I feel like she gets to have her separate closet because she's actually better on this stuff than most people.
Right. And she would never fight during a committee meeting.
She wouldn't do that. She would understand that the Sean O'Briens of Medford are not people you mess with. But like, but in general, like they're just lying to the people that they're seeking to represent. And I think it is appalling. And I think everyone needs to be really just, look, you and we will be deep in the archives for 2024, pulling out every loony statement that any person who is trying to appear moderate now will try to put forward.
Yeah, really super convenient changes of heart are something that you should always be skeptical of.
The king of which? Donald fucking Trump. He is 100% in the 90s. He was all like, tattoo abortion across my chest. For it, into it. Then he was like, I'm the one who flipped Roe. And now he's like, gas break. And like, well, he's trying to avoid talking about it at all cost. And so he is, as the front runner of the Republicans, he is actually the prime fucking example of the problem that they will face.
I mean, in a way, it's all kind of like a Kevin McCarthy tactic, right? You run up to somebody, elbow him in the back, and then be like, I didn't do it. How did this happen? It's like,
if I did do it.
Yeah, if I did it. Let's move on to Wisconsin and then tie this one up in a bow. Yeah. So after April's state Supreme Court election that flipped the Wisconsin state Supreme Court from conservative to 4-3 liberal control, state Republicans have really been trying some dirty tricks. And I think that this gets buried a lot because it's, it's Wisconsin. It's not, it's not California.
It's Wisconsin, and it's a little complicated to understand exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. The history of GOP fuckery in Wisconsin is rich and complex. Like, it could be its own prestige drama because it is so deeply embedded in that state. It's become sort of this laboratory of like anti-democratic and small d democratic fuckery and attempts at like conservative experimentation on a large scale that almost always blow up in people's faces. They've been cutting teacher salaries. They've been gutting the crown jewel state college system. They've been doing all of this stuff before it was cool in places like Florida now. So that's kind of a quick and dirty Wisconsin political recent history. So Republicans have been doing some dirty tricks again. So we mentioned this briefly on the show, but Republican State Speaker of the House, Robin Vos, who is a world-class piece of shit. He's been threatening to impeach Judge Janet Protasewicz on the grounds that during the campaign, she was open about her personal views on abortion and redistricting. So Vos, who is again, dastardly little snake, he impaneled a group of 3 conservative former state Supreme Court justices to get their opinions on how and whether he could move forward with this impeachment for crimes that only happened in his imagination. And once that happened, liberal watchdog group American Oversight filed a lawsuit to access the documents regarding this panel and Vos's efforts. And so far, 2 of the 3 judges involved turned their documents over as ordered. One of the justices advised Vos that it was a really stupid idea. Basically, in writing, he was like, this is dumb. I'm paraphrasing. And the other said that he verbally told Vos that it was a bad idea to try to impeach Judge Janet Protasewicz for doing nothing but embarrassing Republicans in the state of Wisconsin. But one of the judges, Pat Roggensack. That's
Patience.
Pat Roggensack. Pat's refused to comply. She's turned over none of her documents. And she's refused to say what advice she gave Vos. And PBS Wisconsin wrote thusly: when American Oversight attempted to serve Rogensack with a subpoena at her home, an elderly man who answered the door said he didn't know anyone by that name and closed the door. Yeah.
Vibes.
Good. What a good, that's some Scooby-Doo level plotting. And then on November 10th, a judge in Wisconsin ordered Rogensack to turn over her documents, and she's got 30 days to comply. Yeah.
Erin, what a wreck.
It's a real wreck, but it looks like, I mean, the chickens are coming home to roost. This is why I read local news. Because otherwise, how are you going to find out about Pat Rogensack's fake subpoena dodge? It's just too funny. And then just, again, to bring it full circle, remember how Kayleigh McEnany was like, let's give fetuses tax credits? Well, Wisconsin Republicans are actually trying to do that. On November 8th, the state Senate passed a bill that would declare fetuses people for the purposes of taxes. And that's definitely going to be vetoed by the state's Democratic governor. Alyssa, the moral of the story: as Republicans flounder around to come up with a new abortion strategy, no idea is too stupid.
Apparently not. No idea is too stupid. Because, Erin, can I just ask you, how do you file for the tax credit? Is it a sonogram picture? Is it a retroactive? Like, that's the other thing. Like, ask 2 questions and every one of their ideas falls apart.
Yeah, like how early is this available? Like if you have a chemical pregnancy, so you get a positive pregnancy test when you like right before your period, but then you get your period 5 days.
Do you upload your clear blue positive up onto a website?
I don't get it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they've thought this all through. They've definitely thought as, but not thinking things through has never stopped Republicans before, and it's definitely not going to stop them now.